Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Oops. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I'm your host, DBJ. And today, and I'm sure the thumbnail and the title didn't describe quite well what subject matter we're going to talk about today on this tabletop role playing podcast that we do live here on YouTube and Twitch. And it involves optimizing the fun out of things. And it is those of us that are geek nerds tend to take pride in the brilliance it takes to analyze various types of information and narrow it down into its finest form. And the AI revolution is a digital/physical representation of that. And maybe that's not a good thing. That some people, those of us that are in this community, tabletop community, might be the oracles of the downfall of society, a la the movie WALL-E. And we're going to talk about, of course, tabletop role-playing games, and of course talk about the horrors of AI that we are already seeing the effects of. And of course, this has to do with technology and everything. I'm just using AI as a pinnacle of that. But we're going to get into it, get past the intro and whatnot, so you guys can take your bio breaks, grab your snacks, put your feet up, and engage. So we'll be right back. So we're going to also talk about something known as, yay, my comments. WALL-E. Yes. We're also going to talk about the Butlerian Jihad from Dune and how all of these things have come together. WALL-E is immensely great. There's I would say a full third of the movie has no dialogue in it, and it's brilliant. It is very brilliant. And it does WALL-E is a dystopian future and does talk about it reveals a secondary dystopia of humanity, and it's a very good movie. It feels good at the end, and there are little sections with WALL-E and a roach and a partner who just doesn't understand and takes things a little bit too seriously. It's pretty good. It's really good, really good. So where are we going with this discussion? So in video gaming, which has also translated to us that are in our tabletop community, there's this idea of optimizing the fun. Yeah, you're right. They're true. They are excellent visual storytellers, and just the beginning of the WALL-E movie is chef's kiss. It's great. Much like Up, although the beginning of Up is shorter, it makes you want to cry, but WALL-E is up there. So something that's translated over from the video gaming community over in the tabletop role-playing community is the idea of optimizing the fun out of your game. And we will translate the fun to life in just a moment. So the idea of optimizing the fun out of something is there are those who want to solve for X for all things in their entertainment, whether it is television, movies, video games, tabletop role-playing games. And sometimes the brilliance in trying to solve the math problem often, and the math problem being like character creation, or how do I get to the next level of this video game, or figuring out the probabilities of a dice mechanic, or acquiring the Dungeons and Dragons, right? If I just level dip into these things and build my character in such a way, I can never be defeated. I can solve all problems. And while ostensibly for problem solving that sounds like a good thing, ultimately it means that the fun of doing the thing gets removed. So, and what do we mean by fun? Well, it's there. Remember, there's the article about the 8 types of fun, but what happens is the struggle to achieve a goal becomes removed to the point where the goal is so easily solved that it becomes a non-issue. And so therefore, if you take a bucket and start dumping things into it, of course the first couple of things you put into it are all the hardships humanity has to go through to solve a problem. Including in tabletop role-playing games, it's like, well, we need to defeat the dragon, or get to the castle, or stop the evil hordes, or cure the curse. And then thrown into that bucket are all the hard ways to do that thing. And of course, we're going to throw it into that bucket and mix it up so that we don't have to worry about that. Except the fun is the hardship. The fun is the growth element of learning the thing. Much like in the OSR, I'll get to your comments in a minute. Much like in the OSR, the fun of it is the mental acrobatics you have to do to get through an adventure without having an easy button, without having I have a spell that easily solves a situation, rather than taking, the classic OSR thing, 10-foot poles, some feathers, using marbles, how about some powder, using those climbing pitons or pythons or whatever they're called, and jamming them to keep a door open, and using string to lead your way back out of the maze, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Drew says, Up was a film that I thought is not for me. Yeah, I mean, an old guy, a fat boy, a dog, and colorful balloons on the cover. Yeah, nothing which really interests me, but I was so wrong judging a film by the cover. Yeah, Up is one of those rare, because I thought the same thing. I didn't see it when it first came out. I had no interest in wanting to see. My age had already aged me out of Pixar, and the movie didn't really draw me in even with that. I was like, I don't know. And then you find out the reasoning behind that movie, and it's very heartfelt. Very, very heartfelt. It'll crush you. The first 3 minutes of the movie will crush you. And then from there on, you're just like, now I got to sit through this thing because I need to find out what happens. Yeah. Yeah, hardships in a bucket. Welcome to Pandora's new unboxing video. Yeah, and listen, there's a good reason for humanity to try to get itself out of such hard, difficult survival mechanisms. The problem that we're seeing, and reason why I'm vacillating back and forth with humanity, survival, and tabletop role-playing games, is that there are plenty of channels dedicated to solving for X, to optimize the fun out of our tabletop role-playing games. That, Up, I definitely agree with you on that. Remember the Shy Squad? Yeah, Up really is rare. I watched it in the theater and liked it a lot. That never happens. Oh yeah, I could watch Up again right now and just, yeah, it's really good. It's much better than it even deserves to be. And yeah, especially when you're hit with this old guy that's just like, he's just such a party poop. But in tabletop role-playing games, sometimes, what is it? There's this kaiju monster in Dungeons and Dragons called the Tarrasque, and the Tarrasque is supposed to be this giant-sized, monstrous, unkillable Godzilla kaiju styled monster in the fantasy realm, and yet people have mathematically figured out how to stop this thing. They're just like, we'll just kite over it and pop it with a regular old bow and arrow and stuff, you know. And mind you, there have been variations on the monster so that it's not so easily killed, and like people have optimized the fun out of that. You know, you're supposed to have difficulty killing these monstrous, fantastical creatures like dragons and vampires and liches. You are supposed to have difficult decision points and losses of resources and sanity and life and limb fighting them. And once you optimize the ability to defeat these apex predators, then what? Well, there really isn't much more for you to do. And that's been a complaint with 5th edition and variations from that, where now we see a lot of games that are specifically designed around the idea that hey, it tells you on the box cover, right? You're not going to survive long. You're not going to have a lot of resources. You're literally here temporarily, as in Call of Cthulhu. Now, there's other games that aren't as deadly, both psychologically and physically, but there are a lot of games that tell you on the box cover, like the Morkborgs and the Shadow Darks and whatnot. Shadow Dark says, guess what? Light is a resource and you're probably not going to have much of it. And all the dangerous, monstrous things in the background, they're going to go for your light source. And when you lose your light source, you're probably going to be murder killed, right? That's the purpose of those games. And when it's optimized out, then there's no challenge. It's like, well, gathering food and resources is easy, so that's not a problem anymore. Being lost has been removed. Carrying lots of supplies and having a hard choice in what you put in your pockets and your backpack is ignored by simply handing out Heward's handy haversacks and portable holes and bags of holding. And by the way, we really don't even include encumbrance anyway. And then, yeah, you're going after gold, but there's really nothing to spend it on. And if you need to spend money with your ill-gotten gains of gold and riches, you can pretty much afford everything. So then there's no problem with that. And then death-defying, you basically can just rest for an hour to pretty much get rid of most conditions and, stick a rock under your head and fall asleep and get over everything else. And so at a certain point, once it's been optimized out, well, where's the fun? And so we see ourselves leaving. Now here we go, because I like this comment here. Hello there, Desjingo. Hi there. I'm going to get back to some of the other comments here. It says, if a game can be optimized, why optimizing the fun out of it is not the purpose of the game? Well, and here is the ultimate conundrum, right? Because like in sports, there are rules in sports that have been added to many sporting events to prevent someone from optimizing the win condition out of it. So an example would be like there are, I need to pick one sport. Well, kind of a sport. Racing, NASCAR, right? Auto racing. If you ever take a look at auto racing, you'll see that most auto racing, all the automobiles almost look exactly alike because they're trying to optimize their ability to win. But that behind the scenes, they are told like the style, the shape, the type of tires you can use, the size of the engine, the kind of fuel you can use to try to mitigate the ability to optimize the win condition. Because ultimately, if you could, without rules, you could just, once you optimize the game, there is no more fun. And that's kind of it's the natural propensity of human beings to how easy not only just get to the top of the mountain, but how easily can we get there until the mountain isn't an obstacle anymore. And we do that with our entertainment a lot of times, that we take it is it is an argument that's difficult to argue against, right? As Das Jingo has said, it's like, well, if it can be optimized, then why optimize the fun out of it is not the purpose. Well, is the purpose to optimize the fun out of it, or is the purpose to play the game? And sometimes playing the game is the implied purpose, not optimizing the fun out of it. And so an example would be surfing, or an example would be camping, or going for a hike, or I don't know, playing card games with your friends. Is the idea just to play card games with your friends and to win and you're done? Or is it socializing, or being creative, or pushing yourself psychologically or mentally? And it's difficult to write, if you have a game, how are you going to write that in the margins, right? Because someone's going to pick up the game and go, well, isn't the idea... Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, there's some people where they're like, fun, nah, this is a serious game. Like, we're not... Sometimes people sit down to play games and they're just like, the purpose of this is not to have fun, it's to win. And it's like, well, yes, but aren't there, going back to the article about the 8 types of fun, right? Isn't some part of this a social collaboration? Is some part of this to engage our brains so that we are immersed in what's going on, that we're not just check marking off numbers or sliding things, dials and whatnot? And that's why I brought up the video gaming thing, where there's whole channels dedicated to optimizing the perfect way to win a video game. Great. Okay, so it's done. But now everything that was built around it is gone. And how do I explain this? Because I want to get into the AI and the technological part out of the tabletop role-playing game bit of it, and then kind of circle back in. But it's like, well, it does make sense to do that. Yeah, exactly. Das says, so a group decides how to have fun with the game rather than the game? I would say that, but most people, and that's where sometimes we get our, us in our tabletop role-playing community, we get into like these arguments about like, what, you're playing the game wrong. And it's like, well, it's a little difficult to argue something that is subjective, right? Like, if people are having fun, literally having fun optimizing something, that's cool. But oftentimes, yeah, I get to the Butlerian jihad, yeah. But sometimes we get into the point where we get so focused on the optimization that all the surrounding elements of that thing are gone. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. They are just a problem to solve rather than an experience to remember. Yeah, Methane says, how do you think house rules came to be? Yep. Yeah, exactly. I remember, this is just old Grognardian thing. I remember the old Dungeon Master's Guide from AD&D, and we were walking around we were pin cushions for like magic items and all this kind of stuff. And one of our house rules was like, all right, every magic item in the DMG in the back of the book is going to be singular. And we agreed to it. We were like, yep, there's one healing potion. There's one +1 sword. There's one, carpet of flying, one. And if it gets destroyed, that's it. And, we made up a bunch of other different rules about things like that. But they were obstacles to overcome creatively rather than just easy buttons to solve it. Yeah, Drew says the Trask is not from D&D, but actual medieval mythology. A lot of the monsters in fantasy Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, were taken from that. And I can tell you, in my own system, you cannot defeat it. Probably because I treat it like a natural disaster and have no real combat system in the first place. Yeah, what's the term from Spoonie? Once you stat a thing, you can kill it, basically. So, yeah, Das says speedrunners have fun optimizing Oh, why is my brain just farted? It was Baldur's Gate 3. Role players have fun playing story mode in Baldur's Gate 3. Each player decided how they want to have fun. But put both together, how will they have fun? Exactly, right? Yeah. Okay, so Butlerian Jihad. Hard segue. All right, so for those who are unfamiliar with Dune, it's I'm gonna have to summarize this very, very easily, quickly. And getting rid of the nuance. So the Butlerian Jihad in Dune was about thinking machines, what we have today, maybe known as AI. But back then, the Butlerian Jihad was about machines that took away human ingenuity, human purpose, dare I say, human failure to overcome obstacles. And it wasn't necessarily like visually, we often think of it like, oh, maybe the Butlerian Jihad was about machines taking over humanity. And that really wasn't it. What it was about taking away what it means to be human, because now the thinking machines have done everything for us. And in the movie WALL-E, spoiler alert, machines and technology had been created so well that humanity basically laid back in these pods and had everything done for them, to the point where we had just become lazy, and it became a dystopia. And we kind of see that today. It's growing rapidly in our society today. And I feel like our tabletop role-playing community and gamer community at large is like the oracle. We're telling the story of, you know what, humanity is getting to that point. And here's what I mean. We have a lot of tools at our disposal that make living easy and supplant our ability to have to struggle with a thing. An example would be online dating, right? It's pretty stressful and difficult to have to break out of your shell, go up to talk to people, and try to have conversations with total strangers to eventually have social relationships, friendships, and eventually romantic partners, and live a life together. And that's hard. It is extremely hard. And things like online dating and social media have made interactions easy. It's actually made it easy to not only get out of it, it's also made it easy to interact. Hey, there's a picture of a person, there's some information that I really don't feel like reading, and I can swipe left or right to whether I want to engage with this person or not. Whether we have our social media apps, we can engage in those things, and we don't even have to say anything. We just leave an emoji to describe our feelings, and then we're out. We can be easily triggered by a thing in social media or not. And while it's made those interactions easy, what has happened is now we don't have a calcification. There is no struggle to interact with someone until there is a point of struggle. And so now what we see is an epidemic of loneliness, epidemics of people who don't have the social skills to talk to someone face to face. People are losing the ability to read social cues and to have discernment and to engage with people that they just don't agree with. Now, some of us are a little bit from a generation that's older where we didn't have these things. I'm going to guess Methane that yes, says, the dating social app thing is too different to be considered easier, in my opinion. I don't know. I do come from a mode where, from an era where we didn't have that. So us Gen Xers kind of ignored that kind of technology, whereas there's others that have grown up with it. Shai says, this interactive storytelling or immersive style that's totally minimal rules and minimum dice rolls, is that the opposite of optimizing the fun out of it? I don't know. I don't want to. I sound like I'm saying that optimizers are a horrible thing. instead I hope to get across that optimizing a thing has unintended consequences that aren't considered, the same way that people that are into the struggle of a thing accept the consequences, right? It can be easy to just fly to the top of the mountain, with various types of vehicles, which would make it easier to get to the top of the mountain. But the people who are climbing the mountain, they know that, they could die and they could starve or freeze to death, things like that. Yeah, Juice's optimizing can be fun itself. I agree, but I'm saying that the optimizing regime, collective, doesn't pay as much attention, I feel, to the outcome of those optimizing goals, right? So an example would be someone who wants to swim across the English Channel or something, understands what the struggle is in those goals, what failure means, death and harm, and however difficult some kind of like physical struggle is. But what we don't see, and especially with a lot of our new AI agents and agencies and things happening now, are the outcome of those things. And so, yes, you could take a video game and speed run it and optimize it and get through it. But what ends up happening is, how fast is it done? I mean, what is the fun after you've already optimized it? Right? Like if the goal is to finish the math equation and you finish the math equation, what about the people behind you? What about yourself? What about because I often see within our tabletop role-playing community that those that are into optimization end up running across the fact that there's nothing left to optimize again. Whereas there are many other people who play the exact same game and they can have 25 years of fun and joy with that same thing because they've decided to, dare I say, optimize a different path, right? They're like, we just do it because we want to interact with our friends. It's not about winning. It's about the creative aspect. Like what other creative thing can we do with the bits and pieces in the sandbox and whatnot, whereas oftentimes we see optimizers will say, well, the game sucks because there's nothing left to optimize. And it's like, well, maybe the game doesn't suck. Maybe it was your pathway to get there. Not understanding and not realizing, well, what is the end result? I mean, if you go to your favorite restaurant and keep eating the meals, there's an upper limit to that, right? You can enjoy your favorite meals from your favorite restaurant for 25, 30, 40 years of your life, but optimizing it might be, hey kitty, eating all the meals you ever could, and it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe it's the interaction, it's this enjoying the quality, not the quantity. Shai says the dating soul, and I am completely butchering the description of this, but I thought it would just be an interesting conversation to have about optimizing games and having tools that optimize life, and are we heading towards the same outcomes? That if we optimize the struggle out of life, where do we go from there? And I see it being created in front of us, and we are being inundated with it as well in our, whether it's we're more separated now as a society. We have these tools that allow us to silo ourselves off and whatnot, and we're seeing the what would you call it, like the fracturing in our own tabletop community, where Dungeons and Dragons has always been at the top, but we have so many people experiencing other games and going like, hey, there's a different way of doing this. We've got 4 or 5 different versions of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, plus all the other editions of that game. Let alone if you separate everything out that's not D20, there's a billion other excellently designed role-playing games. But sometimes we like to silo ourselves off, and it's pretty easy to do that with the tools that we have. And is that a good thing? I don't know. The dating social app thing was just always too weird for me to even think about. Meeting people in chat rooms and nerd forums, though, totally not weird. I know and we do that too, right? We'll rationalize ourselves into like, well, this like LARPing's for geeks and weirdos, but tabletop role playing games is perfectly sensible, right? we tend to put these artificial tribalisms up, and it's pretty funny about that. Drew says, I guess the goal of optimizing is like with the competitions. It is all about the bragging rights of being the best. And as we, because this kind of, I know I'm adding something into a tabletop role playing discussion that's like big brained, but in many ways, like the question of UBI, a universal basic income type of thing, where if money is no object and human beings have everything they need, then what would human beings do if they never had to work again? And a lot of that is about like purpose and meaning, and we would have to find out other ways to describe ourselves. And I think we in the tabletop community are the microcosm of a bigger thing. Like, we in our own tabletop community, we have optimizers. Like I was saying, you can't avoid that with people who are brilliant geeks and nerds. I mean, it literally lends itself to that. Das even pointed that out. Like, hey, I'm not sure about what this refers to here. Natural Thoughts says, if the world survived from World War III, then I'm sure a Blue Knight era will begin in the next 200 years, totally AI based. I'm not sure what Blue Knight era. I'm already having an idea what that is, but I've never heard it referred to that way. Let me put it that way. But yeah, I mean, in our, if we in the tabletop community can embrace the idea that we're oracles, so allow me to solve all the world's problems from an armchair. So we in the community, I already mentioned about optimizers, right? But like Drew mentioned about bragging rights, sometimes it is being acknowledged for your contributions and success. And maybe that becomes a new factor in a world where no human being has to work any longer. Maybe it's about recognition, acceptance, achievements. We may have to redefine what success and work means, and we already see that in the community. How many different forums do we have? Too many to count. Where you take a game and there are world builders in it, or there are people who are adding in like Dungeons and Dragons. There's like subclasses and new monsters and new house rules, and those individuals are who add the most value into those groups are then elevated because of their attention and their brilliance and their game design ability, their world building ability, their ability to make maps or draw great art or produce videos and things like that. Their voice acting, their ability to make LARPing outfits and cosplaying and things like that. And those people, if you replaced work and gave them wealth is the incorrect terminology, but greater access to resources, which is what wealth gives us, then that would be a thing in the future, right? What is your purpose? Yeah. For me, optimizing is never about being the best. It's always about doing the best with what we have. Efficiency, not expansion or gain. And Methane, thank you very much for putting it in those words, right? Because oftentimes we value, we will see competitions in whether they are sporting events or individuals that are are trying to achieve a goal specifically by putting limitations in front of them. So that's why sometimes a blank canvas for an artist is the worst thing in the world. But if you tell that artist you've only got 3 colors, you've got 3 colors, 30 minutes, and these 3 objects that I'm going to put on the table, go. How many times in cooking competition shows, right? Cooking and baking competitions where they'll say, all right, you guys are the best, but here's the deal. We're going to reveal a mysterious ingredient, and each of you has only what's in your refrigerators, and you have a 20-minute time limit, and you must make an appetizer, a meal, and a dessert, right? And we're just like, we're like so in trance with it, because if you told those same people, no, you can go get anything you want, take as much time and perfect it, it's like, well, is that it, or are the limitations themselves working against those limitations the goal? We have whole YouTube channels dedicated to survivalism, and are there easier ways to survive in the wild? Sure. How about let's take a caravan or an RV and spend enough money on one, and you could have all your wireless streaming shows, and put your feet up in a vibrating lounge chair, and DoorDash yourself or Uber Eats yourself with some food. There's easier ways to survive, camping. Well, is that really camping, or is it more like glamping, right? Yeah. But I'm trying to bring to light that, through struggle, we often know what the outcomes of those are at. We see the failures, we see the injuries, the mental and psychological scars, the mistakes that happen along the way. And as humanity, we want to struggle past that. There's a reason why we created umbrellas, right? Enough of people getting soaking wet. Maybe we should wear clothing that keeps us from being drenched all the time. And then someone's like, yeah, and maybe we should be able to carry it around with ourselves. And so we created umbrellas, right? It's really cool. And no offense to the people that have to struggle through or are like raising their fists in the air like umbrellas are the death of humanity. I'm not saying that, but I am saying like at a certain point, are we such as those of ourselves in the tabletop community and video games and things like that? What are the ramifications of optimizing the fun out of something? And sometimes maybe we do it to ourselves, and then we like sit back and fold our arms and go, well, this game is stupid. And it's like, well, because you kind of solved the problem. And it's like the teacher is like, maybe the work was the best thing, like Methane says. It's about doing the best with what you have, and it's kind of fun, right? I think that's often the mantra of the OSR, where it's like, no, I don't have much, but what we do have, we are creative with its use. And there is listen, don't get it twisted. People that love those old OSR, rules light, we don't have shit, we're probably going to die. They're trying to optimize it as well, but the chances of failure are so great that it would be difficult to optimize themselves out of the pit of the OSR. Yeah. What's the tabletop community Illuminati Marvel comics? Not sure how to describe that. I don't know. Is there an Illuminati? Maybe. I don't know who they would be. As in the Marvel comics, like, are there luminaries in the tabletop role-playing community? I think there are. I think we could name about a dozen or more, I think, that we would consider to be way up there. I think there's others that probably deserve to be there that we probably don't like or don't agree with, that would probably benefit to being in this Illuminati or something. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it is truly a pit too. I agree with that. I mean, are there some OSR people that are like a little bit, they hold it a little bit too tight? I'm probably one of those. Does anybody else think that optimize is such a standard issue advertising buzzword that's almost practically meaningless? Yeah. I mean, there's how many infomercials have we seen where they show someone struggling with something and then they show the device that cures, yeah, that solves the thing, and it's just like, and sometimes they show the people struggling a little bit too hard. It's like, have you ever tried to boil pasta? And you see the person trying to like crack the pasta, and they're just like, oh, you're like, it ain't that hard. Company trying to sell me this pasta cooking machine. It ain't really that hard. But they always do it. World was better in the 19th, 20th century. I don't know. Everyone from their era always thinks that they had it the hardest. So, as we move forward and us old graybeard grognards start complaining about, you young folk have it so easy. Rest assured, the people growing up in your own era never think that. No one ever thinks that their era was like, I mean, yeah, you get some old people going, you had it easy, but usually young folk are like, man, it's so hard to do things. Like the example I brought up about being socially interactive with people. I really don't, it's no big deal to me to go up to total strangers and have conversations, but there's a lot of young people that are just like, how easy it is to, put the hoodie up and the blanket and not speak with people, have any verbal conversations with people at all, and having complete social breakdowns by being asked to speak publicly or introduce yourself to 5 strangers in a day or things like that. And that's just one simple thing, and there's so many other things that I look around and go, part of me as some old dude, it's like, really, like that's your issue? People aren't getting together in groups and hanging out anymore, and it's hard for you to find a partner. It's like, well, find somebody just as effed up as you and have some fun. Sometimes where you stare into the pit, the pier stares right back at you. That is very true. Also, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. Hey, that's where blues and rhythm and blues came from. A lot of that stuff was like songs about like how hard it was to survive whatever situation it is. Entertainment and music has always been about like the communal experience of going through a thing. That's how a lot of many of us become tribalized, because we go through the same crucible, right? If everyone who comes from a different area, if you live in a place that's very cold or wet or suffers through some external earthly aftermath of like winter or summer or heavy rains or earthquakes or mudslides or something like that, heck, famines and things like that, you have a bonding. There's some trauma bonding there going on, like, where you could just look at each other like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. War-torn regions, things like that. I don't have no idea what that means there, Neutral Thoughts. I would not, and don't get me putting the improper emphasis on the incorrect syllable. Wuwad and DJ should be the RPG Illuminati. I don't know. And control everything with psyops from behind the curtains to curtail the enshittification of the YouTube RPG non-community. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, there's, the enshittification of social media groups is a thing that's part of the optimization of a thing, right? Like, how many times have we seen the enshittification of a social media platform go through the exact same thing that happened before, and the one before that, and one before that, and everyone leaping from one social media platform to another as they go through the same processes. I've already heard that like Mastodon and Blue Sky, which are like in my head were brand new. I don't know how old they are, and that people are already saying that they're becoming enshittified. It's crazy. Yeah, way old blues had great lyrics about how much the world really sucked before the age of first world problems. Yeah, and listen, there's some people who live in who have first world problems that consider them to be. It's difficult to argue against someone that feels that those problems aren't real, because within that world, that bubble, it is real. It wow, it sounds like I said Israel. It is real. um Having those problems. But like today, for example, what's a very common thing today, right? Like Instagram images being super filtered out, and people putting up their best life on social media, right? We all know that these are either curated or completely artificial lifestyles people are living, and images of people living, and yet we still are like comparing ourselves to these artificial images. Yeah. Drew says, I think Mastodon and Blue Sky are still fine. People love to hate on new things. That's also a thing too. Sometimes if you hey kitties, sometimes if you have if you start to break up the tribe, people get upset because they want to be in their own tribe. And when the tribe starts to discorporate and move on, again, we start to silo ourselves off. It's just like we were talking about how brilliant the second season of Andor is, and of course there's people on the other side that are like, Andor sucks, that's not my Star Wars. It's like, well, sure, everything is subjective, so you don't have to like a thing, but are you not liking it because you notice problems in the quality, or do you not like it because everybody else is saying it's good? And sometimes we do get caught up in that. Anyway, hard segue back into the optimization thing, and about optimizing the fun or the life out of a thing. WALL-E basically was a dystopia of humanity optimizing the struggle of life out of life, to the point where, I mean, were they really human anymore? I don't know. Yeah, and should we? Well, yeah, I'm going to use the word should. Should we be embracing should we not be trying to remove the problem of the thing? That maybe the problem of the thing is the point of that thing, if that makes sense, right? Like social media platforms are notorious for having a problem with how much freedom of speech can you use on a social media platform versus how do you curtail bad actors and people who are using their influence to just be what would you call a detractor from the way the community wants that social media platform used. And so who gets to decide to do it that way? Who shuts somebody up? What can you say? How do you curtail other people who have no idea what's going on, that get pulled into like flame wars and things like that? And that's always been the thing. But is that a problem that should be solved, or is it a problem that should exist? I'm making an argument for not solving a problem, which is kind of a weird thing to argue for. But yeah, at some point, things can become for us so easy that there are people going to push against that thing. And, who knows? Maybe they're right. Or, ouch, what are you're chewing on, you're going to hurt yourself there, kitty. There we go. All right. Methane says it's all a Ponzi scheme. That gentrification is intentional. Gotta always shift the grifts to maximize that profit. Keep people unstable and always moving, and it's so easy to do it digitally. Yeah, getting people to move from one platform to another. Like the massive wave of people that left Facebook, the massive wave of people that left Twitter/X, et cetera, right? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't count against that there is a hey, if we convince everyone that everything becomes enshittified, then we can automatically move those people to another platform to then garner the attention, and therefore attention means value, a value means wealth, so everyone's eyes. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, most of the problem with our world society today is that our leaders are optimizing for profit and not people. I I agree with that so much, because they are optimizing their attention, not optimizing the outcomes, right? It's like, do I want to be a politician that enacts laws that are better or the betterment for humanity, or do I just want people to vote emotionally for something that I'm making uh, far more egregious than it really is, and just using propaganda to get people under people's skin, to get them enraged or afraid, or to maximize output to get me voted in. Sure, yeah. Salesmanship has always been like a corporate thing and a political thing and things like that. So Drew says imperfection is beautiful. Accepting things for what they are and not what one thinks they should be is, in my opinion, a rather enlightened mindset. I'm very much like that, right? Like, I love human beings sometimes have flaws, sometimes very pretty minor flaws, right? Like, and take a look at Instagram, right? So many people, so many Instagram face and body models look exactly the same, and sure, they may look attractive, but they're all from the same mold, whereas there are other individuals that would never consider themselves to be attractive, and it's like, no, you're unique, you're probably world class and you don't even know it, because yeah, imperfection, there is beauty in the imperfection. And I wonder, if I could circle this back to tabletop role-playing games, that some games that don't have a rule for a thing, or aren't exactly the best designed, or don't give the best examples of a thing, maybe that's part of the core experience. I don't know. Well, if you must know, they put me in the comedy section, and I don't understand why. But whatever. I mean, hell, I make hundreds and hundreds of cents. If you want to take a look at it, I'll give you a discount. So funny. But yeah. I don't know. I think it's something to think about as more and more brilliant designers, both in our gaming community, come up with things to solve for problems, and linking this to a global effect of, as more technology comes out and we see people trying to solve our problems, that could we fall into I guess I'm just giving out a warning that maybe we can fall into something where we're trying to optimize something that doesn't really need to be. Maybe there's a reason for and a good reason for having an issue with a thing. Like, for example, there are some games. What's the game that the author, Mothership, the role-playing game Mothership, the designer specifically mentioned that there is no stealth mechanic, despite the fact that it's sci-fi horror, and for the most part, you're going to be running and hiding and fleeing from lots of science fiction horrors out there. Alien monsters, experiments going wrong, robots, on the rampage or whatever, right? And the reasoning for him not having a stealth mechanic in it, what he claims is he wanted to have a discussion at the table, that all the people there come together to solve a problem, and he didn't want a die roll to solve that problem. And I can, right, just even mentioning that, I can feel the tension in some people who are like, what do you mean a game doesn't have a rule for a thing on purpose? And how the hell do you adjudicate it? Because every time someone wants to use some kind of hiding, stealth, camouflage in the game, becomes of this full-fledged discussion. And I can see some groups breaking apart because of having that discussion. I can see some people being hardline, going like, this game sucks because all I want to do is hide. Why can't I do that with a die roll? Hey, let's make up a house rule where we have a die roll. And but the creator wanted to have that conflict, wanted to have that friction, wanted to create this point of conflict where everyone goes, okay, we need to pause right now and talk about what are the chances, what are the parameters, what's the context, what's the success rate, do we agree with it, what happens when we don't agree and we come to an impasse. And I think that's a good thing for challenging ourselves, that sometimes maybe we don't need a thing to solve our problem. Maybe too much optimization is hard, or maybe understanding that, you know what, if we optimize this one thing, let us understand that we will maybe our ability to solve that problem becomes atrophied. I've seen many times where as a letter carrier, I work through all kind of weather. It's hot, it's cold, it rains, things like that. And the absolute people lose their minds when it starts raining here. It's crazy how fearful some people get with just a light rain. And it's like, no, it's just, from my point of view, I'm like, it's just rain, it's a problem. I mean, things will get wet, but it's not a big deal. And I see some people just like, oh my God, I've got to get to the car. It's raining. I've got to put everything over my head. And oh, it's so wet. It's like, you've been wet before. It's not like everybody else isn't also in the rain. It's like, now my clothes are going to look like they're damp. Yeah, because it rained. Like, are we really going to try to hide? Hey, kitty. There you go. Are we really going to try to hide from every other human being that having a damp shirt is the end of the world or something? It's really weird. Ooh. Hey, kitty, come on here. Come on. Drew says, I agree. Role-playing is a conversation, and that requires talking things out. Oops. This is Scarlett. Yes. Sorry. This is Scarlett. Hey, girl. Hey. You want to... let me pull you in my arms. Here. Lift you up a little bit. Look at you. You're just all... And he says, that is why I despised the 4D style of play, pretending one could be just in character and avoiding anything else. Oh yeah, the 4D, is that where you're talking like director? I can't remember. But I agree. Like, yes, some people are like, I just want to be in character all the time, all the way. And sometimes it's not. Maybe it's not. Sometimes we have to have a good discussion about things. Spook says, in Oregon, we have a word for people who go crazy in the rain. Californians. Yeah. Everyone thinks that California is like this whole big thing. Now, Brutus is behind my neck. Oh, hey, Brut. And then this is Scarlet. My mom was like that about rain. I would always tell her, you won't melt. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Nice to see her in the show. Brutus hogged the spotlight often enough. Yep, brother and sister. Brother behind me, sister in the arms. Listen to you. Wow. Thank you, kitty. Well, I'm glad you're comfortable to own me because I own you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, love. I don't know if you kitties know what love is, but I'm sure it's about but I'm sure ownership is one of those things. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to come up with something. It wasn't bothering me, but I was like, I'm a bit of an armchair transhumanist. I listen to podcasts and people talking about things, and it was pretty interesting to hear about, you hear people talk about AI revolutions and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? We in the tabletop community are kind of going through the same thing in a very small, easily discernible way, right? And I was like, we kind of do that to ourselves too in the community. A lot of times where we're just like, this game has the worst rules. I'm going to solve those rules, and then the rules get solved, and it's like, well, maybe it's not that fun any longer, you know? Or I look at it and I just shake my head and I'm like, mm-mm. I said, yeah, it'll be fun once. And then after that, yeah, you're done. Yeah. The San Francisco Bay Area gets soaked in the winter months. Nah, I don't. I'm not familiar enough with. Go ahead. With California's weather systems. I do know about the every 2 years the fires and there's the mudslides and things like that. Yeah, they sure do. You guys have trained me well. They get fed. They get head scratchies. Yeah, they get the whole 9 yards. Anyway, I thought I had some fun. Just I love to have subjects that get us to think a bit, and how some of the tools that we have available for us to use that solve so many problems for us can also be the very things that when that tool solves the thing, some would say soft shoes and sneakers have ruined our feet and our ability to walk many miles, but we have a tool that helps us. That's just an example. Says, oh, we have a few microclimes in the Bay Area. I'm still not used to it. Yeah, now we're not so. Yeah, there you go, Drew. We're gonna take you out on that one. But yeah, here in Ohio Valley, we get our weather from the north, from Canada, and across the Great Lakes, and a lot of moisture from the Great Lakes. And then we get our weather from the south, which comes up from the Gulf and the Atlantic that sweeps through. And depending on which one is more, which one vies for better control, that's the weather we get. And then because we're in a valley, we also have like a dome over our main city in the center. So we do get like a little bit of heat dome-ish. So we get the valley with soaking and rain and moisture, and then we get a heat dome that keeps some of the weather to split around us. It's really weird. Oh yeah, self-replicating AI ooze. And we're getting there. Wet snow. We get all kinds of snow here. Like sometimes it's wet. Sometimes we get hail. We get ice storms where it rains and then the temperature drops overnight and it freezes. Yeah, we get all that. So hell, we could do a whole discussion about like microclimes and how one side of a mountain range it's desert, the other side is wet. We can get into high and low pressure systems. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. It sounds awful, but guess what? Everybody's got to be from someplace, and weather tribes are a thing. Rest assured, weather tribes are a real thing. Some people were just like, you haven't lived in a flood zone, and you don't know what life is. That kind of stuff. I personally don't live in a flood zone, but I live around flood zones. Yeah. But anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, because we're right next door to Indiana. Yep. Ice storms are horrible. And of course, the brilliant human beings we are, we, instead of putting power lines underground, we put them up on we string them along wooden poles that line highways and roads and things like that. And we wonder what happens when the wind and the ice takes them down. It's so weird. It's just like, anyway, yeah, that's human beings not optimizing the hell out of a thing. Maybe we need to listen to the optimizers who are just like, there's an easy way to solve this thing, but then it costs money. So, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Ooh, that's the trash truck I hear out there, or recycle truck. Sorry if you can hear all that noise. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Have a great day. We'll talk about some other stuff, and if you guys have some great ideas or some funny, or interesting, or even conceptual ideas, let's talk about that. Maybe because I didn't really focus in on the Butlerian jihad as much as I should have, that I promised. Maybe we can even talk about that again. So, guys, have a great one. We're just here around the table talking before the game starts, or maybe after the game ended. about tabletop role playing games. It's really an excuse to talk about world issues as well. You know that as well as I do. So, yep. Yeah, Heathen says our infrastructure is in trouble. I think here in the States, almost all of our infrastructures are in trouble as well. Hey, Spook, you guys take it easy. I will see thee later. Yep. I don't know how great it was. I think some people joined in. They were like, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about," which is kind of the whole point. Sometimes having discussions is the point, right? Not a solution, but one person that I listened to as a podcast says that it's not my job to convince you to agree with me. It's my job to give you information so that you can either change your position or more clarify the position of which you don't agree, which is another thing too. Because sometimes when we disagree, we have a difficult ability to voice why we disagree with a thing. And that's why I like to give you guys voices when you don't agree with what the hell I'm saying. We're just like, oh, that's why. Oh, okay, I get it. And then that means then in return, it's like a back and forth. It's table tennis, right? And then I go back and go, what am I trying to say? Which is why I clarified at the very beginning of the show. It was like, I don't think I'm clear on what I'm saying or where I'm getting to. So, and we only have an hour to do it. Although we could spread it out during the week and clarify it even more if you'd like. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much. Heathen says, wow, I love the attitude. Yeah, I'm not... I'm not here to make converts. That's and no offense, and I'm going to say something extremely arrogant. The world already has me. It doesn't need more of me. I'm a one that was created. Break the mold. Everybody else deserves to be different because that makes the world a whole lot better. It's more interesting and better Lego pieces. You ever get the Lego pieces that all are the same, and if you click them together and can't get them apart and things like that? Yeah, they got to come in different sizes and shapes and thoughts and things like that. So, yeah, yep. So anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being here. We will talk tomorrow. Peace and tranquility. Bye.